I wanted to give you guys a bit of an update on the heat pump. This isn't an extensive test, but I just want to give you a feel for how it's working compared to just having a resistor heating in my previous Lightning, which was the XLT standard range, currently in the Flash extended range, and we're looking at definitely an improvement. Currently, it is minus 14 Celsius, and we started the day at minus 18, so we've had it warm up a little bit. When I left the house, I was shown 370 kilometers of range. Now, Ford does a pretty good job of calculating in from, I've been driving in cold weather for a while now, so it's using that history, and it's using current temperature, it's using the condition of the batteries, and it's calculating that out. And I'm finding it's really accurate within about 10 or 15 kilometers. So what we're going to do is we're going to drive the whole day. I'm going quite a long distance today, about 2 hours one way and then back again. Going to try to do the whole thing just to show you that in the middle of winter I can do that on a full charge. So where we sit right now is this truck has an EPA of 515 kilometers of range, or 320 miles. I haven't been able to test this thing in the summer because I didn't own it in the summer, and the first thing that I did with it is I drove across the entire frickin' country and put 24,000 kilometers on the little fart. So that will have an impact. That first 25,000 kilometers of ownership of an EV, you'll see a quick degradation of the batteries of about 4 to 5%, and then it kind of levels for a very long time. So you do get a bit of degradation in that first 6 months to 12 months of ownership. I did all of that in the first month and a half of ownership. But the big thing is, I'm still being given this morning 370 kilometers of range on a 515 EPA. So that's about a 25% loss of range. That's on par with my Ford Ranger that had the 4-liter V6 aluminum block in it from 2007. In fact, probably a little bit better on this. Now that's 25% loss from top EPAs. That's not factoring in that first 5% loss. It's not factoring in the fact that EPA 515 is based on mixed driving. I see all these tests on the internet and I just want to bitch slap them because they keep doing this 70 mile an hour range test compared to EPA, which is not what EPA is. EPA is the mixed range. Then if you take a look at EPA highway, yes, that's different, but that's not what, when you go and look at the window sticker, that's not EPA highway, that's EPA, mixed range. That's testing both city and it's a blended rate that's done for EPA. Right there, you're probably never going to get EPA on any vehicle you buy. There are some that actually do as good, if not better than EPA. That's very rare. Knock 5 to 10% off that right off the start for EPA. So this is coming in around 15 to 20% loss at minus, well, now we're back up to minus 16. So we're going to be fluctuating between minus 14 and minus 18, probably up until around noon. And then we'll see where we go for this afternoon. It's supposed to get to a high of minus 5. So the whole day is going to be minus. I'm going to be parked for 8 hours on a job site, not plugged in minus conditions, getting back into the vehicle in minus conditions, and driving all the way back in minus conditions. So it'll be very interesting to see how we do overall for the day. So we're going to give you updates as the day progresses. So a couple things to note this morning. We're still at minus 15, so we're not getting any warmer. And keep in mind that where I'm driving today, I'm going from southern Kootenays to a place called Nakusp, British Columbia, and I'm going over 2 passes. I'm going over Cape Horn Enterprise Pass, and then I'm going over what's called Summit Pass. So we're going up and over 2 mountain passes, minus 15, middle of winter, in electric truck. So that's also playing a big factor in what our range is going to be. This isn't flat driving. This isn't where most individuals in North America will be driving, unless you live in Colorado or, you know, you're in the mountain areas. We're going to be looking at averages in the summer compared to averages in the winter, and I'm going to give you something that's a little bit more in depth and accurate. For example, this morning I drove 2.7 kilometers to go get windshield wiper fluid and then reset my tripometer. So there's 2.7 extra kilometers we've got to give the truck that's not in the calculations that we're going to see. And also, we don't have the big numbers from summer, and we don't have a comparative analysis that we can look at because I don't have any from the summer. But a couple things. I usually have just for reference, I'm a bit of a polar bear when it comes to temperature when I'm driving. I don't like it to get too hot because usually I'm wearing a bunch of winter clothes. So I keep it around 70 degrees, I currently have it set at 20 degrees Celsius. And I've got 3 settings for my seat heater. You got 1, 2, and 3. I've got it set at 2. And I always have my steering wheel heater on. So we've got all of those things on as well for climate control. So this is going to give a pretty good indication of the use of climate. We will look at that when we're done the trip to see how much was drawn by each part of the truck, which is really nice with Ford, that we can look at all those little bits and pieces within the vehicle. We've currently driven 60.4 kilometers. We've got 284 kilometers left. So we've come down from the calculation by about 14, I think, somewhere between 10 and 15 kilometers from the original anticipated range. That's because, again, this is just me jumping in my truck and driving. I didn't do a trip planner. I didn't say, destination, the cusp, because I know where I'm going. But if you do that, it'll calculate out all those hills and ups and downs and so on. So we're losing a bit of that range because we're not driving flat. We're driving over a lot of hills and passes. So that's having a slight impact. We've already done one of those. All right, another update on the way. We've just arrived here in New Denver. We've done about 100 kilometers or 60 miles, and we've got 243 left in range. And we add in our 2.7 kilometers that I forgot to, of course, set for, like I always do. So, we're about somewhere around 345 kilometers of range so far. We're averaging 2.8 kilometers per kilowatt hour, which isn't great, but it's not terrible. And we can take a look over here. About 15% of our use of electricity has gone to climate use. You can see the impact of the outside temperature right there. 4% for accessories and 70% for driving. So that gives us a nice look at our first 100 kilometers, but we're doing just fine. I'm thinking we're going to come in around 20 to 25% below EPA, exactly what I'd thought we were going to be first thing this morning, but we'll see how it goes by the end of the day. So there'll be 2 things actually impacting us today, not 1, 2. The first one is the entire trip from Trail Castlegar region of southern Kootenays to Nakusp is all slightly uphill. Even with the 2 passes factored in, the entire trip is going up. And you don't notice it. I cycled it, did the entire trip, about 120, 130 kilometer trip on a bicycle, and boy did I notice heading north, because you can't see it, but you're going up the entire time. So that's going to impact us going in. We should do a lot better going back. So again, I'm not even thinking about these things. I'll be able to go to work all day, jump in my truck, and head all the way back. I'm passing chargers. There's chargers in Nakusp. There's a fast charger here with BC Hydro in New Denver. There's chargers in Castlegar. But like a gas station, you don't need gas, you just keep going. So I'll show you number 2 that's going to impact our range, which we're loading up here in New Denver before doing the last 50, 60 kilometers to get to Nakusp. Whew, it's a chilly one. Well, it's still about minus 12. Here is the other reason that we have our range affected when it's minus 12 or minus 15, is having a rack of ladders sticking out the back of our truck that we're going to be driving all the way to Nakusp, and then back here to unload them. So about 100 kilometers with ladders in the back. Of course, that will affect our range to some degree because this is a work day. We are at Summit Lake. So this is at the top of Summit Pass. Beautiful little spot here in the Kootenays, up in the Selkirk Mountains. And we're getting some clear sky, but it's minus 15 right now. And we're heading for our job site. We're now at about, 150, 175 kilometers so far this morning. And we're just over that pass. We're gonna start coming down over there into Nakusp. And you can see the lake is just frozen solid. We're gonna get to the job site, work for the day. I've only got about 5 or 6 hours actually today, which will be nice. That's why I was able to leave a little later. And we're going to set up, and then the truck's just going to sit out in this cold all day while I work. So, you know, the whole fun about battery drain. What we'll see, however, is there won't be any battery drain at all, but the efficiency of what's ever left in the batteries will drop until the batteries warm up. We'll see a really bad looking range when we first jump in the truck. And as the batteries warm up, we'll see that range improve. All right, let's get to the job site. We are here in Nakusp. We've got 192 kilometers of range left. We've traveled 145 plus the 3 kilometers, 2.7 kilometers we didn't register. So it's looking like I got about 50 kilometers of range to get back. Now I could easily pull into a fast charger and just get 5 or 10 minutes, like zero, really, like a few minutes to get myself over. But we're wanting to see how we do with a full work day in really cold weather, and then we can get an idea of actual range loss over that time. You can see that 14%'s gone to climate use. That's really good. 71% driving, 4% with all my little accessories and toying around, and the impact of the exterior temperature at 11%. So combined, if we were just to, you know, do something that's not really accurate, but if we just took that 11% and we put that 14% together, we would see a 25% overall range loss compared to summer. But of course, in the summer, you're running air conditioning and you're doing all those kind of things, listening to your stereo and your windows are down and all those kind of things that impact your range. So, you know, between summer and winter, there's a lot of other things that you do with your vehicle that affects climate use and accessory use. Time to get to work. Sitting around on my ass, not working. Got to get up some trees. The day is done. It's currently 4:30, heading back out. We usually lose light right now this time of year around 5 p.m. It's currently -8, so we never got above -6, I think today was the highest we got Celsius. And I had to go into Nakusp. The job site that I was at is outside Nakusp, which meant another 20 kilometers in and then 20 kilometers back to the job site, which added 40 kilometers to my day. So I've currently done 167 kilometers, and it's telling me that I've got 160 kilometers left, which puts me at 327 kilometers for the day. That would give me maybe about 5 or 10 kilometers left to get up my driveway. So typically I would just charge, but I'm going to see how we do getting back to the place I was at where I got the ladders, because I have to drop them off. I'm hoping I gain some of that back and I get home with 20-30 kilometers left. If not, I'll have to do a little top-up charge in New Denver. So let's take a look at where we're at once we get to New Denver and unload the ladders. Oh, and I forgot to mention, when I parked, I had 56% of my battery. When I came back at 1 p.m. and had to go into Nakusp for the client, I was at 56%. I drove into town and came back. I was at 54% after the 40-kilometer drive. And I'm currently at 53%. But when I parked this morning, it showed that I had 196 kilometers of range. When I went to go into town, that had dropped from 196 to 170. So the batteries didn't go down, but the efficiency of the batteries and how much range estimate went down by like 27 kilometers. So if you're parked for a very long period of time and it's really cold, you're not going to have your batteries drained, but the batteries become less efficient, as we talked about before. So we're going to see how that improves. Right now it's showing me on my dash that I can't use 100% of my acceleration. Like if I wanted to go from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, it wouldn't let me. It's holding back the batteries to let them condition. So it's saying just use 85% of your battery. I don't have to do anything differently, but I don't have the full torque and power of my batteries at these low temperatures, just to preserve my range and to keep the batteries nice and toasty. So I'm looking at my battery temperature on my dash and my engine temperature. My batteries are below average. They're still showing that they're cold. My engines, my 2 electric motors, are now back to average, so they're normal temperature, but the batteries have to come out quite a bit to get just into normal range. So we'll see how we do with that. Okay, well, we are in New Denver. I just popped into the grocer here to get myself a coffee for the trip home. It's -5, so it's actually warmed up now that I'm here in New Denver, and a nice little surprise, as predicted, going downhill. So let's take a look at that. Here we are. You can see that I've got now the batteries. You can see the battery one on the top left there. You can see this back to normal, almost back to normal. And the 2 electric motors are nice and toasty. And you can see that my indicator for how much power to allow me, it's back up to 95. This was down to 85 for how much it wanted me to use the batteries because they were still cold. So they're up to 95% efficiency now. And you can see what's happened because of that. My range has actually gone up. So we're back at 158 kilometers. So that's pretty good. Here's the other thing. If I would have brought my level 1 charger, just plugging into a 110 outlet, as if you were on a cold job site and you plugged in your block heater. So I was at a customer's property, I could have plugged into their 110 outlet and just kept my batteries conditioned. That would have been like almost the same as if I would have been level 2 charging, or even like a small DC fast charger, because it would have kept my batteries 100% peak in that perfect condition zone, and that would have kept me around another 30 to 40 kilometers while I worked for 6 to 8 hours. So that's a piece of advice for you with an electric truck. You're going to save yourself a huge amount of winter range. But so far looking good, because we're about what we set out with at around 300. We're at 158 kilometers left, 202 so far. That puts us exactly 360 kilometers total today. And I did 2.7 kilometers, if you remember, this morning that I didn't include. So we're over 360 kilometers. That's about 75% of EPA in really cold weather, pulling ladders, going up 2 mountain passes. So far, so good. We'll see what our final numbers are when we get home. As you can see, we've got 299.5, so 300 kilometers we drove today. We're back here at the house, and we've got 76 kilometers. We've got 26% of our battery left. A little range warning thing comes on at 80 kilometers or 50 miles. That's where I have it set. So we could have driven, 299.5 and 76. So we're going to round that off to 375. But we also had 2.7 kilometers this morning. If you remember, I went and got windshield washer fluid at the gas station. So if we put that in there, we're looking at about 378 kilometers of range. Let's see what that is from a percentage from the EPA. So if we run that at 378, we're not going to round it out, we'll do 378, and the EPA is 515. That puts us at 73.8, 74%, so 26% range loss overall all day from the EPA rated average. That's freaking good. I'm not getting EPA anyway, so we also went over 2 mountain passes, and the truck also idled for a while. You can see there my time, 5.22 hours of running time. So that's not my drive time, that's my running time when the vehicle was on. So there were some idle times when the vehicle was on, as it is right now. So all of that time you're using electricity. So that is really impressive. I would say that, this is an unscientific test, but we do know that we are well below what I was with the resistive heating. We're looking at 26% overall loss from the best EPA that you can get. And the temperature's also been, like, we just got back up here, 6:30 p.m. here. You can see -4. That's the warmest it's been all day. For most of the day when the vehicle was parked, we were looking at about -8 to -10 all day Celsius. So that's pretty freaking impressive overall. I'm very happy with that. I think we're averaging under 20% range loss, and all of the data that's coming out with heat pumps has about 16 to 18%. So that sounds about exactly what this vehicle is doing. Now, if I would have plugged it in, holy crap, I could have done 400 kilometers today if I would have just plugged into a regular 110 outlet when I was parked for those 6 hours in the cold. Thank you so much for watching. I'd turn the camera around and wish you well, but it's pitch black right now and you wouldn't see me anyway. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.